I will.
First, for the record, I just want to be able to get your names and titles, please.
Susan Greenbaum, and I'm a retired professor of anthropology.
Russel Meyer. I'm an executive director of the Florida Council of Churches and pastor of St. Paul and Faith Legion here.
Hey, no, it's awesome to be here. Thanks for
But just lay out the idea of what's happening with North Boulevard homes and what's happening to the people who've been living there, how long they live there, and what's happening.
Well, Dr. Greenbaum knows the detailed history far better than I do, so I want to talk about the large picture frame. And that is, there's been this idea in national social policy for a very long time that when you concentrate poor people, you automatically reduce crime. It's a bad idea. It came out of some really bad research, and Dr. Greenbaum's motive related to that. But when you take that idea and then you start looking at, we have this big transportation problem in Tampa, and we're not going to be able to get mass transit because we don't have the political will for that. The way we can get people with high incomes to move back into the city is flip neighborhoods. And so if I have a social policy that says the concentration of lower economic people creates crime, then I fight crime by trying to get those people to move elsewhere. I flip that property, now people can move into town and be closer to downtown. And now my tax rolls have just jumped. So in the past month, a house in Seminole Heights, Old Seminole Heights, around the corner from Florida, Nebraska and North Florida Avenue, sold for $419,000. Everything around it, a tenth of that. And so if you have an aggressive policing policy that makes people feel unwelcome in the neighborhoods where they grew up, where their grandparents grew up, because every time you turn around, walking home from school, or whatever the case is, you're being confronted by the police. You begin to say, home isn't home anymore. I mean, you need to move somewhere. And because federal block grants come to counties, not to cities, and the city has to work with the county for creating social policy, it's just easier to find them Section 8 housing in the county and recover the problem. Now, when you put that kind of housing plan into play, it's called, and the mayor calls it the Nehemiah Project in Sulphur Springs. And Sulphur Springs has this high incident of violence, has a high incident of school expulsion. You put all these things together. The social policy is creating the crisis. And then we say we're going to have policing policy that's going to manage our crisis that we created, rather than going into a community, actually knowing the people, finding out what the relationships are, and then building social policy around those relationships.
But Greenbaum, I asked you then specifically about North Boulevard homes. Give us.
Well, I have not been involved with North Boulevard homes for a couple of years, and for a couple of reasons. But I know North Boulevard homes. It was built in the 40s. It was one of the earliest. When I first got to Tampa, I used to go around the North Boulevard homes, and there were just these fantastic gardens and plantings on the outside. And older women who had lived there since they were young women, and families that had grown up there. And then the housing authority at some point, I don't know, but I guess it said, well, you can't water this stuff anymore, or you can't grow it anymore. And basically, it all disappeared. Now, that's just a kind of a small sort of thing that was done, kind of a micro version of the ecology. But all of these kinds of ways of degrading the quality of life in public housing funding has gone down a quarter, 25% since 2000. That means that for affordable housing, we are spending that much less. We demolished in Tampa alone, College Hills, Constellation, Rivers of Care, all of those people were moved out in a very difficult manner. We were involved with the relocation locations of the College Hill and Constellation. We interviewed a lot of people who had been moved out of it. And we also interviewed a lot of people who lived in the neighborhoods where they had moved. And ahead of their moving, there was no preparation whatever. The Housing Authority, although the theory behind this is, we'll take these poor, benighted poor people and we'll move them into better neighborhoods where their neighbors will teach them that, oh look, people get up and go to work. Oh look, people do. That never happened. It didn't happen here. It didn't happen anywhere. What happened instead was a hostile reaction on the part of the people who were receiving these folks who had just been forced out of their homes and disassociated from everybody that they've been hanging out with all their life. Public housing economy grows around mutual aid. Mutual aid is fueled by social networks. One of the deliberate policies in the Hope Six was to break up those networks. Because of this vicious, nasty, and ill-conceived belief that poor people are bad influences on each other and they teach each other how to do bad things. Really scandalous, scurrilous, and really not what the story is. But it gave a good reason to tear down housing projects over there and over there, and places where land could be reclaimed. And this was part of the scheme. Now, in North Boulevard Homes now, they do not have any funding for demolition. As far as I know, they have no funding for relocation. And what I have heard, and you can verify this, is that they are evicting people and have been evicting people for a long time and not refilling those units. Now, this is problematic for their bottom line, but they're looking forward to the future. Now, I was involved with one particular case where the way that person was treated and the reasons that he was treated that way are absolutely outrageous. He was evicted from his apartment with 5 children of his own that he was raising by himself. I have to say this because it was exposed. He was forced out of his apartment on Wednesday before July 4th. With nowhere to go. And because he was evicted, he had a lot of trouble finding his way. These are the kinds of tactics that they're willing to use against people who are just trying to get by. Now, I don't know why they do that, except that they think that the people that they're supervising are less than them. And that is part of the mentality that I have observed over a long period of time. Not just the housing authority, but many, many other sort of middle class and upper middle class people who have dealings with poor people from Sulphur Springs to accommodation.
You said you interviewed a lot of people who were rejected. What are some of their stories when they came from this place they've always known and now they're in a different place they've never been?
Well, it's hard to generalize, but there were a lot of hostile reactions from neighbors. One of the places we did this was a neighborhood called Lucio, which is just north or just south of the river on 56th. It's a formerly very comfortable single-family place where there were a number of large multi-family apartments that were put in. It's in between Tampa and Temple Terrace, so it has a kind of a liminal political and legal. At any rate, the people in the houses that were surrounding these almost all of them went into like 2 or 3 complexes. So it became resegregation in a way, or certainly reconcentration. They set up vigilante squad. They went and videotaped in parking lots to see if they could catch misdeeds. They did a campaign. They had a nuisance ordinance against one of these complexes. They got a lot of people evicted for reasons that didn't even happen. And those people are then out on the street with no help. Anyway, there was a lot of resistance. And when we talked to people, we interviewed homeowners. They know we're coming from the university, we're probably liberal, you think they were probably going to be containing some of them. There was a tremendous amount of vitriol and anger, not only at the people that had moved in and allegedly fudged children, but the housing authority and the government. How did they do this? They've ruined our neighborhood. Now, lots about Hope City. That is almost never discussed. It's always about we're going to build social capital and new more opportunities for the community. One of those places that got a huge number of people from Sulphur Springs. When the foreclosure crisis hit, Sulphur Springs, because I did research on this too, was number one. Number one. 1,004 went into foreclosure. Now what happened, these were not owners who were falling behind. These were slum landlords who were going around picking up all these properties and having finally a portfolio they couldn't afford. They would get foreclosed on, and the people who lived in their units would get evicted summarily. At the outset, it was quite a while, there was nothing open. You could have paid your rent on Friday, and the eviction came on Monday, and you were out that whole month's rent and didn't know where to go. So this